Hey there everyone, Mazrock here, and today I want to bring you the 9.1 guide for the Blood Decay. So this is going to cover Covenants, Trinkets, Soulbinds a little bit less so because they're a little bit more variable depending on what you're doing and all those fun things like that. But before we get started, I am streaming on Twitch. The schedule's changing up a little bit due to real life events and job changes. So unfortunately, it's going to be a little wonky there. Check the schedule. I'm going to try and keep it updated as much as possible. If you're looking for any tank support, if you're just getting into tanking and you don't know kind of what to ask, what to do, things like that, and you're just looking for a little bit of help, because I understand that tanking, sometimes you can feel very alone if you don't have another tank helping to guide you, because it really is on you to kind of learn a lot of things really fast. And so let's kind of support ourselves by coming down into the community Discord that is linked down below for Mazrock. Come on by, check that out. We're a friendly group. It's a small group right now, but it is growing, and it's very nice to see. Aside from that, if you like this type of content, please, of course, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. That goes a very long way. Aside from that, let's get into the actual guide. If you have watched my Prot Warrior video, Blood Decay isn't actually much of the same point as Prot in the Covenant aspect of things. You can pick really any Covenant that fits your aesthetic, your life, your fantasy, and be just fine. There is some more optimal and some less optimal depending on the situation that you are in and how you are tanking. Kyrian is a little bit more single target focused, although File is amazing in keys. Of course, I use it all the time on my Prot Warrior, getting rid of bleeds and necrotic stacks. It's just lovely. The Night Fae one is more based around your death and decay usage, which changes your playstyle a little bit, and Soul Shape, of course, is just a wondrous thing. Now, full disclosure up front, Night Fae Decay I have the least amount of experience with. When Covenant swapping becomes free, or more free, I am absolutely going to try it and give a better recommendation or less of a recommendation from there. But from everyone I've heard that is a Night Fae Decay, they really love it. It works really well, and kind of what I can gather from second and third hand sources, it's deceptively good. Necrolord is another fantastic option with your Slappy Hands, Abomination Limb, which is really good for getting Bone Shield stacks very quickly. And Fleshcraft is just, I mean, it's a massive absorb. Why wouldn't you like it? My only issue with Abomination Limb in higher end keys is there are times where you actually don't want to use it, so you're holding on to it because it's a bad time. For example, if you're in the Mechagon wing of the other side, you don't want to use it in with the slime room that are going, because you can literally just grab a bunch of slimes and wipe your party. There's times in Halls of Atonement where I want to get away from things. Slappy Hands is up. I don't want these things following me around, but it's a big enough pull where it could be warranted, but there's bleeds, and you just hold off on it. And that, to me, doesn't feel like it's fun, although I will admit, when it is used properly and it is utilized properly, it's so much fun. It is incredibly gratifying. I find the high end on Slappy Hands is just amazing. It feels so good. You can't help but smiling while you're using it, and it's just wonderful. But when it goes bad in a hurry. So this requires a little bit more planning to get very right. But if you all want to be a Necrolord DK, you can absolutely have an absolute blast. On a side note, I would pair Abomination Limb Necrolord with Super Strain instead of the Crimson Rune Weapon. I'll talk about Legendaries a little bit later, but just a side note for that one. And then, of course, there's, for me, what I find to be the most optimal, most fun, is the Venthyr. And the reason why Venthyr I find to be the most fun is it brings the class down to like a 1 minute class when you pair it with Crimson Rune Weapon in Mythic Plus. Because your Dancing Rune Weapon will be about 45 seconds to a minute. Swarming Mist is a minute. Anti-Magic Shell is a minute. So you have a lot more defensive capabilities, increasing your parry with Dancing Rune Weapon, your dodge with Swarming Mist, your Magic Shield with AMS. It just works so incredibly well and allows you to play recklessly. And in fact, it kind of encourages it, because I always want to be pulling. I always want to be going. Let's go. So if you find that you are a little bit more conservative of a tank, and you're pulling a little bit slow, you're trying to be a little bit more methodical, and you need something to just give you a kick in the ass to get going, losing your stacks of Bone Shield and having to start them up from scratch on each pull is going to get that done for you. Because when I'm playing, let's go. Let's go. I'm not losing these bone shield stats. We're going. Because the more that you can play just recklessly and keep chain pulling and going, the way better that you're going to be as a Blood DK, because it encourages that sort of play style, but it makes you better because you don't have to set up, because setting up as a Blood DK is one of the more dangerous things. So now that we're going into the more actual play style, a Blood DK with 0 runic power going into a pull with no bone shields is way more in danger than a Blood DK with a 80 runic power at 30% health and 9 bone shield stacks. Honestly, I'm more afraid at the first one. I'm more afraid for my life at the first one because it's way more possible to get global versus me. I basically live at that 30% mark. Like, I'm good. Health bounces up and down. I ran some keys with a few healers that I've never actually run on my DK this week in our guild, and they were like, oh my god, dude. Like, what's going on with you? Like, why are you pulling 14k HPS? Dude, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. I'll let you know when I'm in trouble. You don't need to heal me right now. Like, I'm solid. I got this. And they're like, you can just hear the anxiousness in their voice because they're used to playing with my warrior who doesn't take much damage. He mitigates a lot of it. But when my warrior is at 30% health, trust me, I'm afraid. Like, oh shit, okay, I'm gonna die. What do I gotta do? Like, oh my god. Versus DK at 30%, I'm good. I'll Death Strike it back up. And that's how you kind of have to have that mentality. One of the struggles that you're going to get as a BDK is not everyone knows how to heal them. You're going to have healers that are like, why are you taking so much damage? And just try and spot heal you as much as possible and not heal the rest of the party. And you're like, no, just focus on the rest of the party. I'm fine. I'll let you know when I'm in trouble. Like, I'm good. Like, I should be pulling 10k HPS on this pull. Like, it's absolutely normal for me to do this. That's fine. My mitigation is healing myself back up. But not to say that you can't negate things. And that is one of the wonderful things about Blood that just makes life so much more fun when playing. Oh, you have a stun mechanic, boss? Yeah, I'm going to Icebound Fortitude out of that and just negate it. Oh, you have a magic mechanic that's really, really crappy? Oh, I'm just going to anti-magic shell that. Yeah, it's nothing. Oh, more Dretha, you're going to suck everybody into your pool? I'm just going to cast Death's Advance and just stay put and just be fine, and I can position you however I want without a problem. Blood is really, really good at negating mechanics, just making them trivial, which is why I really, really like playing in class, because you have all of these tools at your disposal that you can just be like, nah, that's not a problem, don't worry about it, where every other tank is kind of crapping their pants because they have to deal with these mechanics. No, that's really kind of how it goes. It's a lot of fun, but it is very reckless, and it can be anxiety-inducing if you're not used to being at 30% health. For me, like, that's fine, but if you're not used to going down to that 20 to 30% health and just seeing your HP bar ping pong, BDK might not be the best class for you. But if you can get used to living there and get good at the class, you are basically indestructible. I was soloing bosses sub 10-15% where there was a wipe that just occurred on Ophrion. Third boss was Spires. 10%. It was like we had 16 minutes left in the key at that point. Like, we were just crushing it. Like, you know what I'm gonna do? I was trying to brez a healer. I was really trying, but honestly, I couldn't. Every little bit of runic power that I generated had to go right back to Death Strikes to keeping me alive. And after I got to about 4%, I was like, you know what? I'm going solo this. And I did. 10% off of Ryan on a tyrannical week, I ended up soloing on a Blood DK. I can't do that on my Prot Warrior. I just don't have the healing capabilities to keep myself up that life. I can last a long time and negate a lot of damage, but once it's lost, there's just no way to bring that back up. Where Blood, you can just keep on going and keep on fighting. And it's a lot of fun. As you can tell, I really loved the class. And in fact, when I was deciding on my main between 9.0.5 technically on my tank main, it was between Prot Warrior and BDK. And literally what made me go over to Prot Warrior was most healers don't know how to heal BDKs. I know this, I pug a lot, and it's just, it can ruin a run when you get that type of person. And it's not to say, it's not necessarily on the healer's fault, okay? Now, tanks tank differently, so you kind of need to know these things as a healer, of course, but there's just not many blood DKs around, and people that are new to the game in Shadowlands might not know, like, why are you taking so much damage? Oh my god! Dude, it's okay. It's okay. I'm fine. My mitigation is healing it up. I take it, Death Strike it, boom, done. Now, one of the unfortunate things with trinkets in Shadowlands currently is there's not a lot of S tier trinkets for tanks right now. In fact, there's really 2, 3 if you need a little bit more damage. So the 2 S tier trinkets that I would recommend you get right off the bat is, of course, if you've played any tank whatsoever, that blood spattered scale from the other side. Get one as fast as you can. It is wonderful. It is basically another immune. At 246, it's a 50k absorb. It is wonderful. Get yourself one immediately. And another one that I find is underappreciated a lot because it doesn't always get used in the right way, and when you read it, it doesn't sound like a great trinket, but it secretly is the Shard of Anhilde. It is the absorb trinket off the 9 in Sanctum of Domination. It sounds like it doesn't absorb a lot, but when you read it, it actually absorbs X amount per hit for 8 seconds with no actual absorb cap. Because if you read the damage component to that, it says once you have absorbed this amount, you'll do the damage at the end of the 8 seconds. Great. It doesn't say that it stops absorbing. In fact, it actually keeps absorbing X amount off each hit for the full duration of 7 or 8 seconds, one of the two. So this is a trinket that you want to use on mobs in Mythic Plus. Things that hit a lot, but not hard. This is not great for tank buster mechanics where you drop from 100 to 40 in an instant and you have to heal yourself back up. That blood splatter is better for something like that. But the brutal combo off Zav in Theater of Pain where he does the bang, bang, bang. Shard of Anhilde is perfect for it because you're actually negating a lot of the damage that's coming in because the tank buster is separated into 3 to 4 main hits. And that's how you kind of have to approach it. And when you approach that trinket that way, it does truly become an S tier trinket. Aside from that, Old Warrior Soul, Sylvanas, that haste buff, and especially because you're playing recklessly enough in Mythic Plus anyway where you just don't stop. Because you don't want to stop. You don't want your bone shields to drop. You don't want your runic power generation to stop. You just want to keep going. Having that haste buff up for the entire dungeon if you're doing it right, chef's kiss, but that's up to you. There are some other trinkets that you can get, but I mean they're just not as good. Get a combination of those 3, you golden. Let's talk Legendaries real quick. Now, unfortunately for Blood, there's really only 2 good Legendaries, and one of them's kind of boring. Number 1 is Super Strain. It gives you Frost Fever and the Unholy Blight, the Unholy Dot as well. It's fun. It provides a lot of runic power. It's nice. You see more dots. Kind of boring, but overall, will actually end up generating more runic power through the Frost Fever than Crimson Rune Weapon. Now, Crimson Rune Weapon is my preferred M+ Lego. I find it's more fun, and it makes you into a 1-minute class a lot better and a lot easier. If you bring Dancing Rune Weapon down to about 45 seconds to a minute, combine that with Swarming Mist and all the other things I talked about with the Covenant. But to get the true value out of Crimson Rune Weapon, you need to be in combat like 100% of the time, which is why you should be playing a little bit more recklessly, chain pulling a lot more, refusing to leave combat as much as you can. Now, of course, give your healer a second or 2 if you can to drink up if they need mana, but you're self-sufficient. Keep yourself up. Let them drink their mana and, maybe waste a coolie or 2 getting that in. But between the parry off Dancing Rune Weapon, the dodge off Swarming Mist, and, AMS if you need to for magic damage, you're really in a good spot. Like, you're fine, right? You're not in that much trouble, and as long as you have runic power going into the next pack with stacks of Bone Shield up, you have 0 setup to do. You're just continuing your rotation, which I find is incredibly fun. Now, once you start getting up to high-level keys, where, you're having to double, triple pull things, from what I've seen, a lot of the BDKs at that point are just going to Super Strain, because the amount of Frost Fever runic power generation you're getting off those 2-3 pack pulls at a time is much higher than the runic generation that you're getting from Crimson Rune Weapon. Personally, if you're focusing on rating and M+ and you need to absolutely decide on which one to first, go with Super Strain. It is the kind of better overall. But if you're just focusing on Mythic Plus and you want to have a lot of fun, Crimson Rune Weapon is literally a great legendary that you can have a lot of fun with. Let's talk about Blood Decay talents. Now, this is kind of my general M+ setup that I like to do here, and there is a couple of changes that I do make on occasion. Heartbreaker is your absolute go-to with anything like 3+ targets. Heartbreaker is your absolute go-to in that first row. If you are raiding, Blood Drinker is your go-to talent there for most and all single targets. And you can go from there. It's a really, really good ability. It just drops off hard at three targets or more, so M+ Heartbreaker is your main. Hemostasis is kind of your set it and forget it here. Each enemy hit by Blood Boil increases the damage and healing done by your next Death Strike by 8%, stacking up to 5 times. You can obviously see why. You pull a mob, you pull a pack of 5, you Blood Boil, 8 times 5. Simple math. Let's go. Now this here is where it changes. Relish in Blood, if you're new to Blood, is kind of your go-to. It's a set it and forget it. It works really, really well. It's got healing and runic power generation. It works really, really well. I still use this on occasion. Blood Tap, if I am feeling like I'm not playing my game correctly, I'm a little rusty, I think I'm gonna mess up my runes and kind of overspend, I'll use Blood Tap just so I can always have that quick rune on the go, because it does give you 2 charges, and it just will straight up give you a free rune when you need it. And in all honesty, it can be an absolute lifesaver if it's not something that you're just spamming willy-nilly, but you're knowing when you're in enough trouble to be able to use it, and it will save your life. Blood Tap is fantastic. But if I feel like my DK A game is on point that day, I'll go back to Relish in Blood, because this is never going to get used. So that's kind of how this works here. Foul Bulwark, not that great. This row here, Will of the Necropolis is your general go-to. It's kind of the set it and forget it, although anti-magic barrier can be really, really nice in heavy magic scenarios. Use it at your own discretion. Will of the Necropolis will generally be your go-to. For the 40 row, Grip of the Dead is M+, stays on all of the time. That 90% slow is amazing. This week with Spitefuls, all the DK keys I ran, everybody loved the Death and Decay. They're being chased by the Spiteful, just run it through the Death and Decay, they get a 90% slow, they're going right back to DPS, and it works very, very well. For raiding, I'll choose Wraithwalk. You gotta move a little bit faster sometimes. Bloodworms, so here, when I was first starting, Voracious is a lot more defensive. Your Death Strike gives you way more healing. It gives you a nice chunk of leech. And while I was learning how to survive in higher keys, higher than 3 and 4s when I was first starting Blood, and I moved up to 15, 16, 17s, Bloodworms is your definite way to go, but Voracious is more defensive. So if you feel like you're just not safe, go with Voracious. Aside from that, Bloodworms will give you just a lesser amount of healing, not by a wide margin, just a little bit, but it'll be more offensive as well. You get more DPS, which is something that Blood does struggle with a little bit. And on the 50 row, Red Thirst is my absolute go-to. I'm just not willing to spend that much runic power on Bone Storm, although it's so fun to use. Red Thirst honestly brings your Vampiric Blood down to 30 to 45 second cooldown, depending on how quickly you're playing. And it just works really, really well in tandem and is it's just a constant buff that you can have for every pack with combining those. Very, very nice. All right, now I'm not going to comment a whole lot on Soulbinds and Soul Conduits. There's a lot of differences between the Covenants, and to be honest with you, Kyrian and not Naya, but Night Fae, I've played so little of and have so little experience with any of the Soulbinds that I can't honestly comment, although Karain and Naya seem to be very, very good. for Night Fae. And I mean, Pelagos with the Mastery, increase your blood shield, would be solid for any Kyrian tank. And of course, Mechanicos is kind of been the go-to for a lot of Mythic Plus builds right now. So take that with what you will. Emini and Bonesmith for Necrolord are solid options all around. I think Emini, with the new kind of changes they made, has been a little bit better. So again, take with that what you will. I haven't actually tried it in 9.1. Again, when we can swap Covenants freely, I'm going to be going back and having a lot more fun with the BDK all around. Now, when it comes to Venthyr, Naja has been my absolute go-to. It's a lot of fun. It promotes that reckless playstyle that I've been going, because you don't want to stop. You don't want those thrill seeker stacks to drop or go down at all. You just want to keep going, and that promotes that style of play as well, where you can just keep going. It's a nice DPS increase. It's just a really good tree. If you're the type of tank that likes to plant themselves and stay put, and you're just not, like, I can't stop moving. Like, especially as a BDK, I don't get it. I'm constantly just moving around all the time. Like, I can't plant myself still for 4 seconds. But if you're that type of tank that does like to do that and manage the pull from a kind of a turret style position, and General Draven might actually be really, really good for you. The overhealing done by the latter portion of the Soulbind is solid on BDK, because you're going to constantly be doing that with your Death Strikes. So you're going to get a lot out of that. Just naturally, the extra stamina buff and all of that, the extra healing received, is all going to count to your Death Strikes. So there's a lot of nice synergy there. I just can't stand still long enough to get any of those buffs to the point where it matters. That's just me. Theotar, just not that great for blood. So, aside from that, I hope you guys are enjoying 9.1 Shadowlands as much as I have been, and now going to be even more so with the opening of the Covenants. No more Soul Conduits! That is by far the best thing they could have done. No more Soul Conduit energy, because, oh my god, man, like, dude, whatever. That's the one thing I've been hating on since, like, and I don't mean the other things haven't bothered me. I've hated Conduit energy since literally launch. The moment it launched, I've hated Conduit energy. So I'm glad it's gone. But good news all around, right? Again, have yourselves a good one. Be good to each other. If there's anything that you would like to see covered from a tank perspective, I'm coming up with a few new series on helping tanks grow from baby keys into 15s to get their way through KSMs who didn't think they could do it before. So we're going to be working on routing, mythic dungeon tools, how to view your tank and make your routes. So for example, on a warrior, I do things differently than I was on a BDK, because I can handle two different things. So little things like that as we can work around. So if there's anything you would like to see, leave that down in the comment section below, and have yourselves a good day.